Top 8 car rental scams in Europe and around the world. A car is wonderful. I really love traveling by car because it gives an incomparable sense of freedom of movement, and you are not dependent on public transport. But you need to get a car somewhere, you need to rent it. And throughout all my travels, I have rented a car dozens of times and know what to pay attention to. I myself have made the mistakes that I am about to tell you about. You can watch this video and avoid making them, and these mistakes can cost you dearly. Not only will you spend money and nerves, but you will also waste time and might even ruin your trip if you make mistakes when renting. One of the most frustrating scams in my life that I experienced was in Ireland. I booked a car in advance at a great price. I come to the rental counter and they tell me, "Dude, you're in luck. Today, just for you, we have a higher class car. Take it, drive all over Ireland, a wonderful SUV, no extra charge needed." I ask, "Are you sure there's no extra charge? No additional fees, hidden or anything else?" No. Everything is fine. Here, sign the contract. Here are the car keys. It was some kind of Renault, and that's it. Go ahead. I'm overjoyed. Everything is good. I signed the contract. I take the car and drive around Ireland for 2 weeks. The car was actually quite good and served us faithfully. I return it back in Dublin. I fly home, and about 2 weeks later, an additional 700 euros is charged to my credit card. I don't understand where these 700 euros came from. I write to the rental company in Dublin. They reply to me, "Well, you upgraded the car class. You booked a compact but received an SUV. That cost 700 euros. So we charged you." I say, "How? You promised me it would be free." "We don't know anything about that. We didn't promise you that. Here's the contract. It says there's an extra charge for an upgrading class. Is your signature there?" "Yes." "Did you sign?" "I signed." That's it. And I couldn't dispute this charge in any way. I even contacted the head office. It was a company with headquarters in Germany. I wrote to Germany. They said the Irish do whatever they want to and they are not responsible for them. So they advised me to contact Ireland again. Soon Ireland stopped responding to me altogether, and I was left with this additional charge. Another frustrating incident happened in Italy, in Bergamo. We rented a car and without checking it, went for a drive. It turned out that the car had a punctured tire. When I carelessly inspected it during pickup, I didn't notice it, but after a couple of 100 kilometers, it became apparent. Not only did we waste time searching for a tire repair shop, but we also spent money, and all our plans started to go awry. We had to give up on some things. We repaired the tire, and they inflated it for us. But when I returned the car, the inspectors noticed that the tire had been repaired and tried to charge us extra for it. I managed to defend myself and my wallet simply because I had full coverage insurance, which covered as we checked the contract with them, including the tires. Nevertheless, I ended up spending money at the tire repair shop in Italy, and I lost time replacing that tire. Carefully inspect the car before taking it. The tire incident wasn't the only one. The car might have, for example, scratches, dents, damages left by previous renters. Dishonest rental company owners might charge several renters for the same scratch if it wasn't documented. Therefore, when picking up the car, no matter how much you want to start driving, or how tired you are after the flight, make sure to photograph all parts of the car with a flashlight if necessary, and meticulously note even the smallest scratches, dents, and scuffs on the form. Otherwise, yes, you understand that when you return it, they will scrutinize it closely, and you will pay for all those scratches out of your own pocket. When I was planning a trip through the western states of the USA, we had a dream of driving in a red Mustang convertible. We found a car rental company that had red Mustang convertibles, and we specifically ordered that type of car. We arrived in Los Angeles anticipating that we would be given this car, and at the counter they told us, you know, there are no Mustangs available at the moment. We offer you a wonderful Mitsubishi Eclipse. It's in the same class, it's also a convertible. We said, well, how come? We came to the USA to drive an American car, not some Japanese Mitsubishi, right? But he said, we can't help you. When you made the reservation, you chose not the model, but the class of the model. You either agree to what is available or end up without a car at all. It was very disappointing. We decided to get some fresh air. We went out to the car lot and saw that a red Mustang convertible was just being returned by the previous renters. We ran back to the office and said, there, that's exactly what we need. Can you give it to us? They said, well, yes, we can give it to you. It's not reserved by anyone. We avoided disappointment and got a lot of cool photos with the Hollywood sign in the background. A line formed of Chinese tourists who wanted to take pictures with our red Mustang. But the takeaway from this is very simple. If you want a specific model, you must make sure to specify exactly what you're ordering, the class of the car or the specific model. Otherwise, you might face the same disappointment that awaited us. Other classic scams when renting a car. The first thing that comes to mind is, of course, insurance scams. Every dealer who rents you a car wants to sell you the most expensive insurance. Do you need it or not? Do you require such coverage or not? Maybe you already have insurance that you bought cheaper from another company, which I often recommend doing, and you absolutely don't need insurance from the rental company. However, if you don't pay attention, your 30, 50, 70 euros per day for the rental can increase 2, 3, 4, or 5 times because you checked or didn't check the right box and paid for insurance. Please pay attention to this. Another situation that happened to me was the issue with a full or empty fuel tank of the car. When you rent a car, carefully check the conditions regarding the fuel level in which you are required to return the car. These conditions vary among different companies. Some give you a car with a full tank but require you to return it away with a full tank as well. Some give it with an empty tank and don't mind if you return it empty. Some give it to you with a full tank but want you to return it empty. Each of these schemes has its own nuances which can cost you a lot of money. For example, you might think you're returning it with a full tank, but while driving from the nearest gas station, you've used some of the fuel. And this portion of the fuel is charged to you at double or triple the price of gasoline, plus the service fee for the attendant who will drive the car to the gas station and refuel it, and so on. In the end, you end up with a hefty sum. With an empty tank, there's another problem. It's very difficult to time it so that all the fuel is used up right at the moment of returning the car. And as a rule, you have some left over. Some people have half a tank left, a third of a tank, a quarter of a tank. These are the funds you paid for gasoline and essentially gifted to the rental company. So carefully read what is written and follow the specific requirements regarding the fuel level in your car as stated in your contract. Another common mistake many make is returning a dirty car when your contract states it must be clean. Typically, for not bothering to visit a car wash before returning the vehicle, you are charged a penalty that would cover the cost of 10 such washes. Therefore, read carefully if it is required that you return a clean car, which is the case with most rental companies, then visit a car wash before returning it and save a significant amount of money. There are many more cool and interesting videos on my channel. I recommend you watch the video on how to rent a car in Spain without overpaying, as well as a very important topic, how to endure a long flight, how to avoid suffering from jet lag during a long flight, what things to take with you, and how to behave on the plane. The link will be in the description. Go ahead and watch. The next common mistake when renting a car is using the wrong type of bank card. As a rule, rental companies require you to have a credit out card. However, most debit cards, classic debit cards, also have the ability to go into credit. That is, they are considered both credit cards at the same time. That's why we don't notice. We think we have a debit card, but we rented a car with this card in such and such a country last time. But then, it turns out that in some countries or at some rental companies, they pay very close attention to this. You anticipate that you will now get a car. You hand over your bank card, and they tell you that the bank card, is not suitable. Do you have another one? And you might not have another one with you. And you start offering different options. How about we pay in cash? How about I withdraw from an ATM? They say, no, these options are not suitable. Unfortunately, you have not fulfilled the terms of the contract, and the deposit you made, the prepayment we froze, we are taking from you according to the contract terms. And you are left in a foreign city, without a car, with spent money, and completely unsure of what to do next. Therefore, carefully check what type of card you have, and whether it is truly suitable for the rental company where you plan to rent a car abroad. In general, speaking of general advice, it's better to rent a car with a credit card, because with a debit card, your actual money is frozen, whereas with a credit card, only the credit limit is frozen. These are two big differences. It's one thing when it's your money, which will be returned in a month, and another thing when it's the bank's money, which has nothing to do with you. Next, your driver's license might simply not be recognized by the rental company. It could be that your country doesn't have an agreement on mutual recognition of licenses. There are countries where you cannot rent cars with foreign licenses at all. In Japan, for example, this is prohibited, and the nearest police officer will stop and arrest you. There are countries where a translation of the license is required. This little booklet, which is attached to the license with translations into different languages. However, there is a peculiarity here, no? That few people know about. Therefore, before renting a car, make sure that your license will be recognized in the country you are going to, and that the rental company from which you are renting the car will also issue you a car based on that license. And if your license is not suitable, the consequences can be very dire. In this situation, the deposit may also remain with the rental company. When reviewing the rental conditions, pay attention to the following: which countries that you are allowed to enter with this car. It may be the case that you can only use this car in one country, but you cannot drive it to a neighboring country, and there will be a hefty fine for that. And take note of the mileage you're allowed to drive with this car. Because if, for example, it states that you can drive no more than 1,000 kilometers, and you end up driving 3,000, you will be fined so heavily for this that you might end up bankrupt. Therefore, pay special attention to these 2 points when renting. Often, it happens that upon returning from a trip, you find that certain amounts are being deducted from your card. 70 euros, 100 euros, 150 euros, or perhaps several deductions of the same amounts. You start investigating what happened, and the trail leads back to the rental company. They claim that you violated traffic rules, fines were sent to them, and they are charging you for these fines. Yes, but it often happens that rental companies actually do not receive any fines, but thinking that you won't be able to contest it, they simply charge these fines to unsuspecting tourists as an additional profit. Therefore, if this happens, write but to the rental company and demand that they provide you with specific receipts that came from government agencies for these fines, and that it was indeed your car on those days and at the time when you rented it. And by the way, the fines can be very large. For example, in Switzerland, I was fined 250 Swiss francs, and the Swiss franc is more expensive than the euro, because I was 68 hundredths of a second late to pass through a green traffic light. This was recorded by a camera, and I received such a gigantic fine. So be careful. And a fairly common scam is when the same amount for car rental is charged from you again. This could be a repeated charge of the deposit you already paid, the prepayment you already made, or sometimes the entire amount is charged again. This is resolved quite simply. If you carefully monitor the charges, write to the rental company and they will acknowledge their mistake. They attribute it to either human error or a system glitch. But how many tourists didn't pay attention to this, allowing the company to gain additional profit? Don't be among those tourists, and carefully review the charges on your bank account. You can learn more about the specifics of car rental in Spain from my other video. Check the link in the description. Of course, don't let anything spoil your vacation. Prepare in advance for your trip and plan meticulously for renting a car, and savor and cherish every moment of life and your journey.